In fact, the political aspect of this has had one conversation that people have been talking about, and maybe one word that best describes it: bickering between Republicans and Democrats over this. And many Americans are saying, we don't like this. In fact, the great majority of responses that we've been getting on Twitter, MySpace, and Facebook have been angry Americans because of the behavior that they saw yesterday. Two people joining us now, one a Republican, one a Democrat. Scott Garrett is good enough to join us. He's a Republican from New Jersey. Also joining us is Chris Van Hollen. He's a Democrat from Maryland. I guess it's all about Pelosi's comment. Scott, what was it about Pelosi's comment that made your colleagues, or perhaps you, so angry to choose to vote against this, as we heard from your representative?
Well, I would say that for me, it had absolutely nothing to do with her comments. My position was made the day that the Secretary came out with his proposal a week ago Saturday, when he gave us a 3-page bill that gave the administration $700 billion of authority without any checks, balances, or even court oversight to spend as he would see fit. I said on that day that I had real concerns with that bill, and I wanted to see some alternatives. And for the next weeks, we never got the chance to give those alternatives. So her speech and the politics of that sort of stuff had absolutely nothing to do, and I would say, in reality, had nothing to do with any of the members' votes on the floor.
So why then would Boehner come out and say that? I mean, he held a news conference yesterday. He was surrounded by many other Republicans, and that's the message they gave to the American people, that this thing would have passed had it not been for Nancy Pelosi's comment.
Well, I guess you'd have to speak to the leader on why they brought that press conference out. I guess at best you can say it's just pointing out that in these tough, difficult times that we're going through right now, and I think both sides of the aisle would agree that these are tough times, that what happens on Wall Street does affect Main Street. The best thing we can do is actually come together, work together, and not have such statements made by either side of the aisle. And I guess they were pointing out that maybe on the floor the Speaker's comments were maybe not the best place to do it. But now let's move ahead with that and try to come up with something better.
All right, Congressman Van Hollen, let's move ahead. Tomorrow, apparently, you all are going to be getting together once again. What are you going to be able to do, and how confident are you will come up with a resolution?
Well, that's right. There are lots of discussions going on. They began, in fact, right after the vote failed yesterday. Speaker Pelosi called Secretary Paulson, called others, and said it's time to get this thing back on track. But you have to understand that there was a bargain that was put together. I have great respect for my colleague Scott, and I respect his decision. I disagree with his approach on this, but I respect his decision. But the Republican leadership did say that in putting together a deal, they were going to bring half of their caucus together, and they failed that test. And then, as you heard,
well, who do you blame for that? Everybody's been blaming everything from John McCain for saying he'd be able to help, to Boehner himself for not being able to bring the horses together.
Well, again, I mean, John Boehner said he was going to bring half of his caucus to the table for the vote. John McCain said he was going to go round up Republican votes. In fact, they issued a statement essentially taking credit for the vote before it happened, expecting it would pass. And then John Boehner went on and really insulted a lot of members of his caucus, like Scott and others, suggesting that on this issue of national importance, that they decided to vote no because they were dissed or felt bad about something Nancy Pelosi said.
All right,
when in fact that was just not the case.
We've covered that ground. Let's move on to something else. I want to ask you about this is a proposal that's coming from a Republican president that was backed by a group of Democrats, but not backed by Republicans. Seems, I don't know, is there an irony there?
Well, this was a proposal that first was made in the form of requesting a blank check, as you know, for $700 billion. The Democrats and others in Congress said, no, we're not going to give you that kind of authority. We think you're well, and we established some very important conditions, which is what allowed us to get a substantial number of Democrats on board. There were still a lot of things.
But we've got issues here. I mean, Scott Garrett, let me go back to you if we could. This is what you told our booker. I'm going to read it to our viewers because I was going through my research as I prepared for this interview. This is what you told her: we should not go to the administration who has brought this problem to us through their actions in the past. You're a Republican essentially saying something that's almost akin to what Nancy Pelosi was saying yesterday about this administration.
Well, there you go. See, we can work, have the same positions on both sides of the aisle on the House, and maybe that's a good thing. That we should not go back to the original proposal that the Secretary laid out, and that the President laid out, one which as we've said already, was a failed proposal. Doesn't really get to the underlying problem, which is a tight credit marketplace. And there are so many other alternatives that are out there to being discussed, such as an FDIC arrangement, an insurance backstop arrangement, all things that the administration said they didn't want to discuss. Well, we would like to discuss them, and I think the American people would like to discuss them. And hopefully Chris would like to discuss them too.
Sounds like there's alternatives out there, and it sounds like you guys are going to be taking up some of those alternatives tomorrow. Quick one-word answer if you can. Do you expect that we'll hear some more of the I guess, bickering is the word that was used yesterday? Or do you think that'll be put aside tomorrow?
Let me say, I agree with Scott that it is time for everybody to come together. Again, we thought we had done that, but obviously the votes weren't there, and so
tomorrow
we're going to go right. It's already the discussions have already begun today. No one's waiting till tomorrow, but when we can get the votes will of course depend on the ability to come to agreement. So you don't want to artificially schedule a vote for a certain date until you've got the agreement that you're going to go forward and get the votes.
Americans are going to be watching. We thank you both, gentlemen, for being with us and taking us through this interesting conversation. I'm going to be taking this to you in a little bit to find out exactly what they said are proper alternatives. Are they really alternatives? Can it be done? Hold on just a minute. We're going to come back with this and obviously some of the new tape that we've been talking about in the Sarah Palin story.